Now, democracynow.org. I'm Anjali Kamath. We turn now to India, where the ruling Indian National Congress-led coalition has just emerged victorious after the 5-week-long national elections that saw a 60% voter turnout from the over 700 million eligible voters. The Congress-led United Progressive Alliance, or UPA, captured a decisive 262 seats in India's 543-seat parliament, just 10 seats short of an outright majority. The Congress is now seeking allies from smaller regional parties to form the new government. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who will serve a second term, spoke to the press on Saturday shortly after election results were announced.
The people of India have spoken and spoken with great clarity. They have expressed their faith in the Indian National Congress. It will be our effort to rise to the expectations of our people, to give them a government which is a caring government, which represents the best instincts of Indian polity, which works for sustained and equitable development, which protects the secular values and will ensure an atmosphere free from communal hatred and violence of any kind.
While the Congress party itself cornered 206 seats, the most in a quarter century, the rival coalition led by the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, only won 157 seats. The biggest defeat, however, was for the left parties that had their worst showing in more than 30 years in their traditional strongholds of West Bengal and Kerala. Prakash Karat, the General Secretary of the Communist Party of India Marxist, acknowledged Saturday that the left had suffered, quote, a major setback this year and vowed to continue cooperating with non-Congress, non-BJP secular parties. India's business interests, meanwhile, rejoiced in the victory of the Congress and the blow to the left. This is Amit Mitra, the Secretary General of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry.
So why business is so happy? Stability, continuity, deepening of reforms has become very important. And finally, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the left had said we will not allow him to be Prime Minister if you are to support the government. That issue is off the table.
Well, I'm joined now here in the Firehouse studio by Balmurli Natarajan, Assistant Professor of Anthropology and Director of the Gandhian Forum for Peace and Justice at William Patterson University of New Jersey. He writes on caste, race, globalization, politics, and culture, and is a member of the Campaign to Stop Funding Hate, the South Asia Solidarity Initiative, and the International Campaign to Free Binayak Sen. Balmurli, welcome to Democracy Now! What's your reaction to the elections?
Well, it's a very good time for us to start actually making democracy. It's a big victory for the savvy Indian voters and a fantastic show by the Indian Election Commission, which has done a grand show of actually holding a very orderly election process in a complex society. But then this is the time when we all need to start actually looking at our institutions and seeing how democratic they are. So I welcome the results and a big kudos to the Congress Party.
And what's your sense of why the left, performed so badly this year? Last time around, they had the largest number of seats ever, and this time in 2009, it's their worst showing in 3 decades.
That's true. I think the left has a lot of introspection to do. Contrary to what is being spun by many commentators about what is the meaning of this election, and I really want to stress that we've had elections, and we need to be very clear what democracy means. It's a necessary but not a sufficient condition for it. So the left, in fact, can be said to have lost precisely because it aggressively tried to push through neoliberal economic reforms, which is what the Manmohan Singh government has been trying to do in a large national sense. Nandigram and Singur, for example, are 2 very important sites in West Bengal in which pro-people's movements have very much opposed the ruling left coalition and the way in which they had tried to sell off prime agricultural land for special economic zones and things like that. So there's a lot of introspection on the part of the left as to in what sense are they pro-poor and pro-people.
But the special economic zones are not something that are only promoted by the left. I mean, clearly, even though they seem antithetical to a left agenda, they might be promoted by the left, but they've also been promoted by other parties as well. Absolutely right. Indeed, if you go to Rajasthan, the western state where actually the Congress beat the right-wing BJP, the BJP had also started doing a very aggressive program of neoliberal reforms with privatization and special economic zones. And in some sense, one has to be clear as to what is the mandate for the Congress. I believe that the mandate is for very good governance, transparent governance, but also in ways that the Congress was initially very suspect about moving on pro-poor policies such as the NREGA or the National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, but then later on became one of its best votaries, including the right to information. So in that sense, the mandate is for the Congress to continue to be very careful about pushing through neoliberal reforms, do it in ways that are actually not deteriorating the democratic institutions of India. Now, the left has been one of the main voices speaking out against the Indo-US nuclear deal. What's your sense of the future of this deal under the new Congress-led government? I think the Congress has been very clear that it wants to push it through, and perhaps now is the best time for it to do that. The debates tend to get very complicated with both the left and the BJP opposing the nuclear deal, but really no one talking about the fact that South Asia really needs to be completely rid of all nuclear weaponry. So that somehow has been off the table. And I think progressive forces need to be very careful in pushing this through. And what's your sense of where the different parties stand or where the new government will stand in terms of relations with Pakistan? I'm very optimistic about the Congress foreign policy being a non-jingoistic policy that actually looks at ways in which the citizens of Pakistan and the citizens of India can come together on the same table and not go overboard with pushing through terror laws that have had a very, very negative repercussion on civil liberties in India and therefore have their way of playing it out in Pakistan too.